Okay. Here we go. All right. So, oh, that's in the way. So second lecture of today is authentication and cookies. And I'm pretty excited to share this with you. I feel like it's kind of mind-blowing, maybe not. Maybe you'll think it's just not that cool, but I think it's pretty cool. And it's kind of figuring out how we use the internet to be logged into stuff.
Sorry, do you want to record?
Yeah, I already started recording.
Perfect.
Okay, so here's the outline. Here's what we're going to talk about. We got HTTP. Obviously, we're going to continue talking about HTTP. We're going to talk about authentication and how you are, who you are, right? How can we tell who you are? And we're going to talk about how we do authentication with cookies and sessions. Kind of cat's out of the bag, I guess. But okay, so HTTP, we already know it. Or at least we're familiar with it. It's right application level protocol for communication, right? Just a messaging protocol to send text. And we can specify metadata and the content of messages, right? We can add headers, stuff like that. Doesn't specify how the messages are transmitted, right? We leave that to like the lower layers of the OSI model, right? We don't worry about that, but we just know one request, one response. Now, here's the kind of kicker that we kind of glossed over, and that is we run into a problem with it, right? So the last thing I'm saying here is it's stateless. So it doesn't remember the previous request or response cycle. It's like that movie was, I think it's 50 First Dates, where they keep going on dates even though they've been together for a while. They don't remember. Servers, HTTP, those servers for that are very similar. So when you make a request to a website, it doesn't remember who you are the next time you make a request. What's the problem with that? Am I lying to you? What is the issue with this major part there? Why is stateless an issue?
Doesn't that relate to the speed of the response?
Not so much the speed of the response. Let's say like this. Well, you go to log into a website. What do you have to do to log into a website?
Right, you gotta log in.
Gotta log in, right? You have to put in
And if it doesn't remember it, then
yes, Dwayne's got the point, right? You log in with the website. You give the website your username and your password. It says, great, okay, you're logged in. You send the next request to go do something as you're logged in. It doesn't remember who you are. Do you have to put in your username and password every time you try and do something that requires authentication? No. So something else is going on here. So even though HTTP is stateless, there's some way that the server can remember who you are. We've somehow tricked a way to build state into HTTP. Even though HTTP itself has no state, doesn't remember who you are, the protocol specifically, it just doesn't worry about that. We have a way, we have the technology now to add state to the web to get you logged into websites without having to put in your username and password every single time you want to do something. You're like, well, okay, we've had this forever. Like, who cares? All right, well, let's talk a bit more about it. So there's this term in security called AAA, and it stands for authentication, authorization, and accounting. And we're specifically going to focus on the authentication part today. The other stuff's really important, right? But we're specifically only going to talk about the authentication. How does a web server do authentication, right? How is it that when a request comes in, it's able to say this person is who they say they are? Okay. So here we've seen this image before, right? When you log in or create an account on a website, you're going to create an account, you give it a password, password gets sent over HTTP, hopefully over HTTPS, and then goes and save that password into a database associated with your account. And every time you go to log in, we're going to verify that password, right? You're going to put your password in again. You're going to send another request, probably a put request to try and log you in. And the server's going to get that request. It's going to look into the body of the request. It's going to see the password. It's going to compare it to the password it has in its database. And if it's good, it's good. And if it's not, it's not. You're not going to get logged in. So we've seen this before. But I'm telling you, I don't have to put in my username and password every time I want to do something, right? I log into my bank just one time, and then I'm able to send multiple requests. I'm able to do multiple things. Right? So how does this work? How do we get there from here? So again, just reiterating the problem. For us to be certain a particular user is who they say they are, or to personalize the experience, we need to authenticate them. So how do we do authentication without having to ask you your username and password every single request? Right, every time. So how do we stay logged in HTTP? And really, if you just think of what this image is right here in your brain, this is pretty similar to what's going on. What is this?
Coat check.
Is coat check, right? So when you go to coat check to drop off your coat, what do you get?
A number tag.
Right, you get some kind of tag, a ticket, and then when you go back and you want your coat, all you have to do is give back your ticket, and that is your authentication. So we're going to do something very similar over HTTP. And you guys have all used it before, but it's been under the hood. Now we're going to peek under the hood, right? It's this guy. This is a cookie monster. We're going to look at what cookies are and how they work for us. Right? And let's talk about what a cookie actually is. There's no magic here. It's really just a small text file. Right? All it is a small text file. Let's take a look into what's inside this text file. Okay. So we have the client, the internet, and the server. You make a request. It goes across the internet over TCP/IP, right, to the server. A response is generated and goes to the client over the internet, right? With cookies, here's how we're going to do it. We make a request, send it through the internet to the server. Server's going to put a cookie onto the response and send that back to you. And then every time you're going to send another request to that same server, you're going to attach that cookie and send it back. That's your ticket. That's your ID. And when the server gets that ID, it's going to be like, oh, welcome back, Mr. Monster. Here's wherever you were. Right? Do something with this cookie. Okay. So let's take a look at this with sessions. So this is a little bit more. We don't want to authenticate with every request. So what's happening on the back end, on the server side, again, send a request. The server is going to make what's called a server session. It's basically just going to hold all of the information relevant to this session that you have when you're interacting with the server, like what's important, what page you were on, you know, maybe any forms that were like halfway filled in and you like leave the page and come back and it still has your stuff, right? Like that kind of information might be stored in a session so that when you have the response, you bring it back, right? It goes to the client, you make a new request with the cookie. The server reads that cookie. It's going to look up your session and see exactly where you were. It's going to hold some information about where you were and then makes a response based on that information. Cool. Let's go into it even more deep. Okay, this is the exact same thing that we just saw, but a little bit deeper. Any questions before I go a little bit deeper on just like this pattern?
Michelle is asking, can we only have one cookie per session? Like, what if I'm really hungry?
What if you're really, you can have as many cookies as you like. You can have as many cookies as you like. I will show you how many cookies you can have. There's tons of cookies, many cookies. Okay, let's go here. Okay, so here, this is essentially what we were looking at before, but flipped over. The client is now on the right side of the screen. The server is now on the left side of the screen. The right side, right, our client is our browser, and the left side, the server, some backend. You know, maybe it's running Linux, Apache, something. So you make a request. Here's what that request will look like, right? You've seen this before. It's a request to yourapp.com. the root of your app.com, right? Because it's a get slash using HTTP 1.1. It's user agent. So probably I was Chrome when I made this, and I'm looking for some text or HTML. But you'll notice there's no cookie on this request. No cookie on this request yet. Okay, so there's my request. Send it over to the server. Right, it's going to go into the server backend, and the server is going to have to do some work with this thing. So the server gets this request. It says, whoa, I see there's no cookie on here right now. So let's make a session, right? If I don't have a cookie, this means this must be someone coming for the first time. So we're going to make a session for them. So the server makes a session, and it starts formulating the response that it's going to send back. So here we see an HTTP response. At the top of the response, we have the headers, right? We're saying it's a 200. Okay, like here, thanks for requesting my app. Here it is. And then in the body, we can see the HTML for your app, right? You can see regular HTML. You can see there's a script, right? A JavaScript. So it's like, hey, make another request for this /js/main.js to get the rest of the JavaScript that you need for this app. Okay, but here's the next thing that's going to be different. There's a new header, one that we did not talk about that the server can put back on to its response. It's called the set cookie header. Right? So it sets cookie, and then what does it set as a cookie? Cookies are kind of like key value pairs. You'll notice there are key value pairs everywhere once you start to look for them. And here it has my UID for my user ID. You'll see UID, UUID. You'll see that commonly as just a term for ID. And then it's equal to something, some random string. Some random string. That's my cookie. Okay, cool. So you put that on the response, and we're also going to create the session store. The session store has, you'll see that same hash. Can I go back? Let's see, set cookie. You see my UID and then 1AF9B0D. That to me looks like it's some kind of hash, some just random string, right? So it's going to make a hash with the key, or make a session store with the key of that hash and the value of whatever information is associated with that user. This user was my cat, Nar. Okay. What else is the server going to do? It's going to continue building this response and then eventually send it over to the client, right? Then you get this response. This is the response you get. So your browser reads it, says, okay, cool, we got it. We got that HTML. I'm going to start putting that on the screen. Oh, it looks like there's another request for that source for some JavaScript. I need to go get that. So I get the instructions for how I need to behave. And it looks like there's that set cookie parameter. So now I know whenever I make another request from to the site, I'm going to add this cookie along with it. Okay, that's set cookie. So there's the HTML, blah, blah, blah. I start rendering it. I have my cookie there attached to my browser. I make another request, right? Maybe I refresh the page or something. Again, just go into yourapp.com, regular request, looked exactly the same as before with the same headers. But now I have a new header, the cookie header. This is where you'll send your cookies, right? I just put exactly what it gave me. I just give it back my tag, just like you would at CodeCheck, right? Attach the cookie there, send the new request with that cookie to the server. Server is going to read the request and figure out how to make a response. It's going to read this. It's going to be like, hey, is there a cookie parameter? Well, looks like there's a cookie. Let's go look up what information we have for this user. What were they doing so we can help them? We can make a better response, right? So we're going to look up our session store, look up what we have here. Right? This must be user nar. Get all his information. And it's kind of like, not Oprah, but like essentially every time you go to a website, you're just going to get sessions, and we're just going to give out sessions to everybody, okay? And here's my cat. He sleeps kind of funny sometimes. Do you have any questions?
So when you clear your cookies, essentially you're telling the server that you didn't exist before now.
So if you clear your cookies, whenever you send new requests, you're not going to have any cookies attached to them, right? So the server is going to think you are a brand new user. If you go ahead and delete all your cookies, you'll find that you are logged out of every application, right? And big surprise, that's how we log people out of applications, right? You'll notice this with, for example, and here's the other thing. These sessions that live on the server, they don't have to live forever, right? Maybe you only want the session to live for about 5 minutes, 10 minutes. Maybe it has to constantly be refreshed. What situations might that be? What am I referencing there?
Account.
What kind of account?
Bank accounts.
Yeah, bank accounts, right? If you don't refresh the page or do something after 5 minutes, it logs you out, right? It'll say that this session is no longer good. That cookie is no longer good. What other security implications does this mean? What does it mean if you have somebody else's cookie?
You have access to their whole life.
Yeah, right? If you have that cookie, it's basically like having their ID, right? If you have that cookie, you have their ID. And you can now send requests with that cookie and do things, right? Now, there would have to be a session attached to that, associated with that cookie, right? But you could. If, for example, you logged into your bank at like a coffee shop and someone had Wireshark open, and let's say this was a terrible bank, and right, we sent things over. Let's see, are the cookies encrypted? The cookies will be encrypted. But let's say we send it over HTTP and the cookies are not encrypted. If you catch those cookies, if you're listening for those cookies, you can impersonate that person and do things. If there are cross-site scripting attacks that we'll talk about more in Red Team, some that you'll actually execute, where you can get people to essentially send you their cookies, send them to your website, send them to a site that you're listening on. And then once you have those cookies, you can impersonate them. We'll actually do that in a couple of weeks, not soon. Let's actually take a look at, let's see, is there anything I want to show you about cookies besides this? I don't think so. I don't think so. You can add cookies in your browser, so maybe we'll do that. Let's log in here. Let's take a look at some cookies. Trying to think of what website I can log in and show you the cookie. I guess I could log out and log in a full stack. Or learn dot. Yeah, let's take a look at the cookies. I'm going to have to change my log out and log in real quick afterwards. But there's a couple of ways we can see the cookies. So Control Option I. We can go here, and I believe it's under memory. Forget where it is in each of these. Storage. Wrong thing. There it is. So you go to storage, and then you can look and see cookies here. So learn.fullstackacademy.com. Here are all the cookies I have for learn. You said I could, someone asked if I could have more than one cookie. I could have many, many cookies. You can see the domain that they're associated with, right? So this cookie is for fullstackacademy.com. That means when I make requests to that domain, I'm going to be sending that cookie. You can see their key value pairs, essentially. So there's a key here. The value is that. And then you can see some additional information on the cookie. I don't know which is the one that has me logged in, but one of these cookies, you can see when they expire as well. Let's see. With curl, of course, you can make requests with cookies. You can make requests with cookies here. I'm pretty sure you can edit them and add cookies. In the console, you can take a look at cookies. They're under document.cookie. If I type document.cookie, I see a big string here. This is the cookie. These are all my cookies. If I want to, I could change cookies this way too. I could say document.cookie just by setting it. Cookie equals, let's say, cookie. And let's just see how this is. What is it? Colon? Oh no, equals.
You have an extra M in documents.
I have an extra what?
An extra M in documents.
Document. Yeah, I see. Thank you.
No problem.
Document. I think that should work. No, it didn't reset it. I should be able to reset them like that, though. I usually do it through this browser, through this tab. You could set cookies that way. You have any questions on cookies or how we stay logged into websites or the security implications of what cookies can do? So again, the ways to take a look at what cookies were attached to you by the server is again here, open up storage, and you can see here all different cookies. There's other sorts of storage that's available to you here, but the one that we're going to be interested in are the cookies, and you can see which of them. As well as just going right to the console and typing document.cookie. Let me clear this so you can see document.cookie. And you just get the big string of it. Isn't that crazy? Isn't this absolutely bananas? How like this protocol was meant just to get text files, and now somehow we have entire web apps where you can log in and do all of your banking. Right? Like this is absolutely bananas, guys. I want you to start to appreciate this. You know, next time you log in to one of these sites, try and keep like your developer tools open or something like that, and just like look at these requests. Just like pay a little bit of attention to what's going on here. All right. If there's no other questions, you guys are. Oh,
We have a question in the chat. When a website asks for access to your cookies and you click accept, what exactly are they getting? Just the websites the cookies are from, or the entire cookie?
this is a big rabbit hole. But you can send the same cookie to multiple different locations, and they can all kind of track you like that. Imagine it's like you're giving some sort of identification everywhere you go on the web. And people can, essentially, sites can track you that way, especially large advertisement rings. I won't go too much more.
Impersonate you, right? Like they see where you were.
Right. Right. So the cookies that you're sending over the wire, no one should be able to read them. Right. They're going to be encrypted. But on the back end, those servers, they're tracking everywhere that you go. They're like, oh, you know, this person went like, they went to this clothing site. They went to this clothing site, right? So they're tracking maybe this person wants clothes. We're going to sell advertisements with clothes or stuff like that on it. And it gets way deeper and creepier than that, but that's not. Cool. You guys are totally good to go for the problems OREO and Big Blue Muppet now, right? We're just going to be kind of playing around with the cookies there. Okay. I'll split us up, same groups, and then maybe bring us together in about 90 minutes to see where we're all at.